That was what Xian said, but the others felt he was intentional. It felt like he knew this would happen and had the leader step into this danger. Yinkong nodded without saying anything. She turned around and ran toward the exit. She appeared calm, but there was a hint of anxiousness in her eyes. They could tell she actually worried about Zheng. Xian didn't stop her. He flipped through the documents. We have enough time to leave here. We have obtained our item and reward for the bonus mission. That's it then. Mission obtained. The prototype T-virus successfully completed. He ignored the weird expressions from the others and started walking away. After Xian got 10 meters away, Cheng Xiao said to the rest of the team in a quiet voice. Did something happen before I was revived? Is he trying to kill Zheng? You really can't irritate the psychopath. He just kills you if he catches you and you don't even know how you died. Yes, don't ever irritate him. And did Zheng really do something to him? Kampa patted his shoulder and said. It might be a misperception, but don't you think what you just said annoyed him? Cheng Xiao suddenly looked shocked. He carefully glanced at Xian and saw him still reading the documents like nothing had happened. Cheng Xiao let out a sigh of relief. Be careful of what you say. This is a man with a demon hidden within. He looks like he never cared, but he will eat you in whole when he starts calculating. Anyone that talks behind his back needs to be careful. Or you might be the next one to get abandoned. Talking behind him. Just like what you are doing? Wang Xia walked past Cheng Xiao and casually asked. Enough about Cheng Xiao seeking death. Yinkong was running to the research facility anxiously. She wasn't good at communicating herself, but she was really worried about Zheng. She didn't want to see him die. She wasn't aware when did it start that she had acknowledged these people around her, even though they were weaklings when judged on the standards of her seniors, comrades, and Zy Kong. These people were weak in both strength and willpower. They were people that could be abandoned at will. Yet she had acknowledged them as comrades. Zy Kong killed all the people she trusted. She didn't want to give up on any of these comrades she had now. This emotion was not in accordance with the way of assassination. However, she wished to protect them. The corridor leading to the exit was quiet. Team China had cleared all the defensive machineries and guards. She easily came out of the center in just 2 minutes. Then she ran toward the research facility in full speed. She noticed fires burning in everywhere. There were remains of several armed helicopters burning on the ground. A fighter jet was speeding through the sky and a dozen armed helicopters followed behind it. Yinkong didn't stop to watch this intense fight as she continued toward the facility. Halfway there, she heard a loud bang. One of the helicopters that was firing missiles shattered into pieces. It then exploded in midair. Zero moaned as he held his head in his hands. Lan quickly asked. What happened? Why was that helicopter shattered with a shot? Are you alright? Zero shook his head. It's fine, just a little headache. The success rate of the mystic eyes is too low. You can only see half a second and the points and lines move extremely fast in that half second. This is my 4th shot already. It's impossible to hit a moving dot. I have to rely on the speed of the Gauss sniper rifle to hit the lines. There's less than a 25% chance I can use the power of the eyes successfully. Lan didn't understand the situation regarding the mystic eyes, but she believed what Zero said. She suddenly saw Zero bleeding blood from his eyes, nose, mouth, and ears and panicked. Zero, you alright? Say something. Zero wiped the blood that dripped down from his eyes and smiled bitterly. The mystic eyes put too much strain on my body. I can't see anything now. I probably won't die, but I have to exit the unlocked mode now. The pain is going to knock me unconscious. His body started convulsing. Zero's last shot was spectacular, but Yinkong wasn't in the mood to watch the firework. She counted down the time in her mind. And she had entered the unlocked mode. Numerous guards were running out from the facility and screaming with fear. Some of these guards had missing arms and legs. Yinkong ignored them. She still had her dragon's heart with full energy. Her Excalibur didn't have the laser ability, but its sharpness was impressive by itself. Its invisibility attribute allowed her to kill people without traces. She stopped hiding herself and charged straight ahead. The guards didn't bother her. They kept running as if they had seen a ghost. Neither side bothered the others. Yinkong counted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. She entered a big lobby and a pungent smell of blood struck her sense. There were no living humans in this room. 2 7-meter big creepers hung on the ceiling. Tentacles grown on their bodies made them look like octopuses. Their hideous appearance gave her a shock. What was more shocking were the pressure and sense of danger these creatures imposed on her. She tensed up herself as her instinct was telling her she would die from these 2 monsters. One of the creepers jumped down from the ceiling. Yinkong immediately rolled toward a corridor to the side. The claw swiped into the metallic floor, then pulled a layer up like it was a piece of paper. The creeper pulled off several meters of the floor. The other one also jumped down and leaped at Yinkong. The strength and speed of these creepers were terrifying. Yinkong could only rely on the sharpness of Excalibur. Her close-range assassination techniques were nearly useless against these huge monsters, and the lobby was spacious. If only she still had the metal wire she could use in long range. Experience told her there was no way to live if she fought both creepers unless she found terrain suitable for assassination. Worse yet, these creepers didn't seem to see with their eyes. If they sensed people with smell or temperature, her sneak techniques would be useless. She flipped herself up from the floor and ran into the corridor. Yinkong didn't turn her head once. She could move faster than these creepers, but such speed also robbed her of the ability to do anything else but run. Yet, the further she went, the more that she felt despair. Because the smell of blood was getting even more intense ahead. So intense that it could make a person suffocate. The place ahead seemed like a slaughter ground. Were there even more creepers? Yinkong took a deep breath. She didn't stop her steps. She raised Excalibur as she made a turn. The area ahead was much brighter. It was a huge lobby and there, she saw Zheng. Zheng stood on top of countless human and creeper corpses. He was holding a creeper's head in his left hand. His right hand was holding Tiger's soul. The sword pierced through a creeper then into the wall. There were at least 100 creeper corpses in this room. Yinkong was absolutely shocked. The scene in front of her was so astonishing. Those were over 100 of the huge creepers, not zombies, nor humans. They had bodies that were 7 meters big, monstrous strength and speed. If they were to encounter one of these creepers in their second Resident Evil movie, it would take them some effort to kill it. However, Zheng killed all of the creepers by himself. His power was beyond anything a human could attain. Yinkong had been drowned in her own thoughts ever since she was revived. The previous Resident Evil movie might have been long ago for the rest of the team, but it seemed like yesterday to her. The familiar stranger that she had secretly liked and admired gave her only despair and hatred. Their battle still seemed to be going on in her eyes. That was why she didn't fight Zheng after she was revived. She didn't get to learn of his strength. Zheng used to be stronger than her, but that was only due to the second stage of the unlocked mode. After she exchanged the Shining, it was questionable who would win in an all-out fight. Yet this scene overthrew her conception. Without knowing, Zheng had grown to such a degree that she lagged way behind, just like the person she hated. Yinkong. Zheng threw the creeper's head away. It shot into the wall like a cannon and smashed into a paste. Zheng's eyes were bloody red. He grinned at his teeth and growled like a beast. His mind seemed to be in a berserk state. After he saw Yinkong, a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes, but then he roared. Yinkong was struck by the disappointment at herself that she forgot the creepers chasing after her. One of the creepers leaped from 5 meters away from her. Its sharp claws aiming at the back of her head. Zheng moved as he roared. He appeared behind Yinkong in just an instant. Saru in instant destruction was too fast that Yinkong couldn't catch his movements with her eyes. By the time she turned her head around, Tiger's soul slashed upward and cut the creeper in half. However, Zheng was too close to it that the light blade became ineffective. His wrist dragged through the creeper's teeth instead and was torn open a wound. Tiger's soul dropped to the floor. At the same time, the second creeper jumped down at him. Zheng didn't have time to pick up Tiger's soul. But because Yinkong was standing behind him spacing out, Zheng reacted with even more madness. He jumped toward the creeper instead of backing away, then kicked at its head. He had entered explosion. The strength and speed of his kick shoved its head into the body. While still in midair, Zheng grabbed the creeper's shoulders and began tearing them apart. The creeper was split in two from the middle. This 7-meter monster was like a toy in his hands. He then smashed the corpse into the floor. In the end, no one could even make out that this was a creeper. Zheng stopped his growling. He turned around to Yinkong and said, "Are you all right?" She looked at this man bathed in blood and suddenly woke up. This was a battlefield. That inexplicable spacing out could have gotten her killed multiple times. Even though Zheng's madness saved her, but as an assassin, she wouldn't allow herself to continue showing her weakness. Yinkong shook her head. Xian said this place is going to explode in 7 minutes. I took 5 minutes to run here. There's about 1 minute and 30 seconds for us to leave. I will use the Shining, which will get me out in 45 seconds. What about you? Zheng was stunned for a moment, then cried. He charged over to Yinkong and picked her up. Shit. Don't bother with the Shining. You only have speed in that state. Your reaction speed doesn't increase. It would be strange if you don't smash into a wall. Don't talk and hold onto me tight. She was about to struggle to free herself when she felt a gust of wind. The scenery was flying backward at an insane pace. Zheng picked up Tiger's soul and ran with such impressive speed. It wasn't as fast as Saru in instant destruction, but the speed was beyond anything Yinkong could reach. The Shining might be faster, but her lack of reaction speed was fatal. Zheng didn't know Yinkong had fallen into her thoughts again. He entered explosion and sprinted ahead. He could maintain this state for much longer than destruction. The road he went past was embedded with his footprints. The alloy floor couldn't stop his force. Yinkong quickly became accustomed to the speed. She pondered over her weakness and wanted to ask Zheng how he became so strong. But this was not the time to ask. Furthermore, everyone would keep the secret to becoming strong to themselves. They were merely comrades. Instead, she asked, "Did you kill all the creatures in that room?" Zheng replied with a nod. "Yes. I killed all of them." "Haha, do I look like a devil now?" "Not referring to my clone, but a devil that slaughters everything." Yinkong was surprised as she looked at Zheng again. She frowned as if she couldn't understand. "That's surprising. You obtained the heart of a slayer." "Heart of a slayer? What's that?" Zheng asked. "Everyone has their soul. Some people are kind, some ruthless, some flexible, and an assassin needs a calm and apathetic heart. Only when you do not care for the world anymore, will you be able to see the world calmly. An assassin kills people, but he cannot be affected by killing. A normal person would feel scared for killing a person, sin for killing 2, and cold-blooded and violent when he killed 3, 4, and 5 people. Such person is tainted by killing. An assassin needs the mindset that allows him to remain himself after killing. That's what we call the heart of a slayer. Yin Kong was surprised to find herself speaking so much. Zheng was carrying her, but they were in an urgent situation, so she didn't feel much about the act. Though it was still rather awkward. She could only talk to take away the awkwardness. Do you still remember the werewolf doctor of Team India? He's a classical example of being tainted by killing because he didn't have the heart of a slayer. He's not a complete assassin. I know of a person with the heart of a slayer, but he did something inexplicable. You will at least not become tainted. Zheng was surprised and laughed out. No such thing. I am just aware of what I am doing and what I want to do. He jumped out of the facility before they knew it. 50 seconds had passed. Yin Kong pointed at a direction and Zheng gave a shout and charged ahead. The battle in the sky was still going on. Most armed helicopters were downed. There were over a dozen broken helicopters on the ground and some burning in the sky. The Valkyrie was flying back and forth in the sky. Gondo seemed to be panicking. Zheng didn't know how much time they had left, so he kept running. As expected, he saw two sky sticks on top of a hill. Xian was standing on one of them. He looked so calm even when he knew this place was going to get destroyed. After he saw Zheng covered in blood running over, he adjusted his glasses and lifted off with the sky stick. Zheng exited explosion and stepped on the other. He followed after Xian. Soon, a thunderous explosion came from behind. He turned his head slightly and saw two mushroom clouds. Team China headed to a forest beyond the suburban area. It was nighttime and the sky sticks didn't make much noise, so there weren't any jets intercepting them. Xian clearly knew the terrain of this area and had already planned their escape route. After everyone came off the sky sticks, Zheng felt a little feeble, or perhaps exhausted. Fortunately, he drained the last 40% of chi and blood energy from the mithril rings which supported his empty body. On the other hand, Yin Kong immediately jumped out from his arms, then turned her body. It was a rather rare sight to see. She was as apathetic as Xian usually. This reaction reminded everyone she was still just a 15-year-old. Zheng was surprised to see her reaction, but he didn't pay much attention. He turned to Xian and said, "Are we stopping here? Is there going to be any problems?" He was asking if Umbrella Corporation would send people to chase after them and Xian's next plan. He fell into Xian's traps too many times that he was scared Xian was planning something imaginable again. He would set him up again for interest. Xian walked off the sky stick. He didn't care much about Zheng's words and replied, "We will enter this forest. It is 11:20 at night. There's a creek 3 kilometers in. We will light a bonfire and rest there. Then we will continue moving at 5 in the morning. In about 30 minutes, we will reach an abandoned mining cave. From there we will then return to the board of the city and wait for the 20 days to be over." Zheng pondered over this plan. There didn't seem to be any loopholes. Just then, he noticed Kampa carrying Zero on his back and was shocked. He immediately ran over to Kampa. Chang Xiao said in a serious tone. "His wound isn't fatal, but it's not optimistic either. The blood vessels in his brain have minor rupture. He hasn't gone into paralysis, but the accumulating blood will eventually put enough pressure on his cerebral nerves and put him into an unconscious state. After 48 hours. Zheng interrupted him. "I don't understand the blood vessels and cerebral nerves. Just tell me if his life is in danger and can you treat him?" Chang Xiao thought for a moment. "No life-threatening danger. I can also treat him, but I need a spacious and clean area. The underground mining cave is impossible. Then I need 5 hours and an assistant." That was when Zheng connected the resting time and place Xian decided on, which also had a creek. So that meant Xian chose that place to save Zero. Save Zero? No, I chose that place to avoid the satellite searches. Xian refuted. The movie showed that Umbrella Corporation has a satellite system. We were definitely locked on by the satellites when we escaped from the facility. However, satellites aren't effective at all situations. The dense forest will reduce its detection effect greatly. If they lose track of us, they will send parachutes and bombers. Gondo's Valkyrie only has 20% of its ammunition left. Zero is unconscious. Hung's arrows are powerful, but he's not suited for sustained battles. As for everyone else, you can't battle over 10 jets even with the sky stick. We are better off letting the satellites track us. They will not want to battle at night to avoid unnecessary casualties because they don't know we are almost out of ammunition and has no sniper rifle. Our strength at the facility shocked them. Zheng was stunned as he looked at Xian. He thought Xian started to gain human emotion and became considerate for his comrades. Who would have known he was still so apathetic? Zheng asked. Then? What are we going to do at 5? Xian sat by the bonfire. Now the bonfire and the light from the Valkyrie showed our location. A large ground army will surround us in the morning with jets as support fire. So we have to leave at 5. Head into the mining cave and destroy the path as we go. After we enter the water tunnel of the city, we will be safe. Zheng nodded. He was confident with Xian's decisions and plans. It was trust that Xian had built up. He looked to the side with worry. Chang Xiao was performing craniotomy on Zero and Yin Kong was his assistant. The tools he exchanged before this movie came into use for the first time. It was also the first time the team witnessed his true medical skills. He disinfected Zero's head with alcohol, then pierced needles into several acupoints. Then he brought out a glass bottle containing colorful mini centipedes. The centipedes made them shivered, but Chang Xiao put his hand into the bottle and squashed the centipedes. He applied the centipede's paste on Zero's acupoints. This stops bleeding, anesthetize, and has strong antibacterial attribute. He muttered. Then he took out a scalpel from his medical tools and began shaving Zero's head. Zero finally lived up to his name with nothing on his head. After Cheng Xiao opened Zero's skull, Yin Kong became busy. It might very well be personal reason that Cheng Xiao chose her as the assistant, but as an assassin, she knew more about the human body structure than the rest of the team. She started draining the extravagated blood on the surface of the brain. She seemed so skilled that they couldn't believe this was her first time performing craniotomy as an assistant. Time slowly passed. When light creeped up the horizon, the surgery was finally finished. Zero hadn't woken up due to the anesthetics, but the surgery seemed successful judging from Cheng Xiao's overconfident talks. His medical skills were truly exquisite, from finishing a surgery that would normally require multiple doctors and over 12 hours. Why do I feel like Zero's face looks pale green? Are you sure the crab you fed him was fine? Zheng still looked worried. Kappa was carrying Zero on his back. Cheng Xiao immediately replied. No worry. That wasn't a crab. It was a spider, okay. It's a type of goo that can reduce the rate of blood circulation. We will remove this goo using God's rapier after we return. Or I can do it also. However, several of Zero's major blood vessels have fissures. They were not something I can fix with the tools on hand. We can only have him sleep until we return. Zheng sighed. He learned of what happened to Zero. He couldn't believe it was the newly exchanged ability. The mystic eyes of death perception was unbelievably powerful, but so was the strain it put on the user. It was probably worse than his explosion. Not at the level of destruction yet, but Zero's body was fragile in comparison. It seemed like Zero had to test for the limit of his uses in God's dimension to avoid this happening again and losing a main force in the team. No matter what, his life is saved. Zheng sighed, then turned to Xian. What about you guys? I didn't hear any notification about rewards, but there was a notification about mission completed. Who received the points and rewards? And did you obtain the prototype T-virus? Xian nodded. Correct, someone received the rewards. Now the question is, the data on the prototype T-virus shows it not only acts as a stimulant to unlock the first stage of the genetic constraint, but it can also create nemesis. We can turn the humans we created into nemesis. Zhen hadn't spoken to Xian ever since he was told about turning their created beings into nemesises. He didn't get into an argument with Xian. He just needed to think through some things. Obtaining the Heart of Slayer also changed his decision-making. One of the change was how he viewed staying alive. As long as the nature of himself didn't deviate, and he killed only those who deserved to be killed, then killing was acceptable to him. But everything should have a boundary. How could he decide who deserved to get killed? Xian, it's fine to turn the created beings into nemesises. I remember when creating them, you can choose everything about them. You can even create a body without a mind, a slave that would only listen to your commands. If that's the case, 500 points can get us a strong fighter who unlocked his first stage. However, is that really suitable? He pondered for quite some time before asking. Xian was looking through the documents in his hands as he walked. He replied without raising his head. Can't get over your consciousness. Do you need me to give you some psychotherapy? No, no need. Zhen hurriedly replied. He knew very well what kind of person Xian was. If Xian were to perform any kind of psychotherapy on him, he would either go insane or get brainwashed, in the very least he would develop schizophrenia. So he replied. It has nothing to do with consciousness, since we can treat them as empty vessels because they don't have a mind. However, the nemesises are strong, but are large numbers of them really suitable? That was when Xian finally turned his head around and looked at Zheng. There was a hint of surprise you would rarely see in his eyes. You are right. That's why I didn't say we are creating a large numbers of nemesises. I just told you of this effect of the prototype T-virus. You should know we are not the only team in this realm. The next movie is Lord of the Rings. If we can obtain influence in that world and capture the natives of that world to create nemesises, we won't have to spend too many points to create them. We don't even have to spend much to exchange weapons. All we need to give them are some close-range weapons. Getting these bodyguards out of nothing is my plan. He understood what Zhen was getting to. If they were to create nemesises from God's realm, they would have to exchange weapons also. Even if enhancements weren't necessary, each one would cost them at least 3,000 points. The teleportation beams were also limited in size. So they couldn't bring a large number of nemesises into the movie worlds. Which meant they would end up having to spend point to increase the power of each nemesis they had. Xian obviously considered this already, and his plan was much more ruthless. The movie worlds they went into had people inside, so they could just turn those people into nemesises. That would give them large numbers of nemesises which could become useful even with simple weapons. Since we have obtained a method to increase a person's strength instantly, we have to maximize the effect of it. Instead of wasting our points and rewards to create fighters, which isn't beneficial to our own growth, we might as well create these fighters in the world of Lord of the Rings. Judging from the method of manufacturing the prototype T-virus on these documents, I think I can create 80 portions before entering the next movie. You wouldn't disagree using these on the orcs, right? Zheng felt settled. Xian didn't usually explain much, but he always considered all possibilities. Zheng was worried Xian would create slaves for a temporary increase in the team's strength, which was actually detrimental to the team. Now that Xian became clear with him, he would be happy to show off in the next movie. They went from the forest into the mining cave. The entrance was blocked off, but they easily got inside by using Tiger's Soul. The last one to enter was Wang Xia. He knew methods to cover up their traces and fake traces to other paths. After Wang Xia entered the cave, Zheng blocked off the entrance again. The data shows this mining cave has been abandoned for over 30 years. However, the bedrock is stable, so there haven't been any earthquakes and the cave remained. By the end of the mining operation, they dug into a crevice. 100 meters beyond the crevice was the underground water tunnels to the city. Xian didn't slack off after he sent Zheng out as a bait. He conceived the details of the attack and their escape plan. After he found out about this cave, he immediately came over with Lan to inspect the crevice underground. He finally confirmed this escape route. Umbrella Corporation wouldn't be able to track the water tunnels with their satellites. Once their time was up, they could return to the alley they entered and go back. The air was muddy since the cave had been closed off for so many years. Their bodies were stronger than normal people, but they still couldn't breathe air like this for a long period of time. The soil was wet and the air was more humid than they had imagined. Luckily they had over a dozen oxygen bottles in the dimensional bag. It seemed like Xian had prepared for the situation. The team had no risk of suffocating for now, but Zero just had a craniotomy, so he was at risk of getting infected by the dripping water, even though the hemostasis spray and bandage had antibacterial effect. If bacteria got into his brain, things were difficult to say. They continued moving. Zheng took over Zero from Kappa. He didn't know if it was useful, but he still channeled his chi into Zero's body and hoped to raise his body's immunization. This didn't last long. A few hours after they entered the cave, they came to the end of the mining cave. Zheng had to open the way with Tiger's Soul, which forced him to stop giving Zero chi. The road became difficult to walk and narrow. Lan also had to keep her scan on to avoid Zheng causing too much damage and collapsing the place. Zheng finally dug through the 100-meter wall and the team entered the city's water tunnels. Everyone was covered in soil and rocks. Xian's plans were always so complete. He actually found an abandoned break room in the tunnels, otherwise they would have to spend the rest of their time here with the foul smell in their soil-soaked bodies. Another hour passed. Everyone cleaned themselves and had some simple foods. They were finally able to sleep. They had been fighting since attacking the two buildings, then had to escape and went underground. The road was difficult to walk on. Everyone was exhausted at this point. They found an empty area and just lay on the ground. Snores came on in just a few minutes. By the time the team woke up, the time was already night of the 20th day. There were only a few hours left before they had to return. They had some more food, then moved along the water tunnels. Lan assisted their navigation with Psyche scan. 2 hours later, they came out from a manhole on the street. Only 10 minutes left before time was up. Keep going along the street. The second turn ahead is the alley we came in. Lan said to the team. The others nodded. Zheng walked in front with Zero on his back. It was only a 2-minute walk. Everyone calmly walked and didn't show any panicking expressions. As they went into the alley, Zheng noticed a black sedan driving by. There were 2 beautiful women and 2 men in the sedan. Oh, and there was a little girl leaning on the window. However, she looked at the other side of the street and didn't see Zheng. Zheng gave a smile as the sedan drove away, then turned back to the alley. We will be back. We will. Everyone was exhausted coming back to God's dimension this time. Zero was still heavily injured and unconscious. However, it was also comparatively the easiest return for them. Thinking back, they were either missing arms or legs and were on the brink of death multiple times. At the end of Alien, Zheng wouldn't have made it if he were just a minute late. It was only when they went to the Mummy to revive members or went to vacations did they came back like this. The team had repairs followed by discussions. They discussed the gains and losses in their operation. Yinkong, Cheng Xiao, and Gondo were the ones who obtained the rewards for the mission. It was really randomly given out just as God said. Zheng put in the most effort and only received the points for killing the creepers and nemesis. Each nemesis was worth 50 points and each evolved creeper 25 points. So he obtained over 3,000 points, though still less than the fortunate 3. Team China's strength in this operation also surprised everyone. Although they were aware Team China was strong, but they didn't imagine the team to be so strong when in full cooperation. The strength of the team was in cooperating their extreme strengths and weaknesses, such as Zero's sniping ability and his lack of close combat strength. Hung had amazing burst but only for one shot. Gondo's Valkyrie was immensely powerful, but a Psyche Force user could easily manipulate or kill him. Losing anyone would weaken the team by a lot. It was evening by the time they finished talking. Everyone ate dinner at Zheng's room, then agreed to meet up the next day to discuss the prototype T-virus, what to exchange, and about the upcoming movie. Once everyone left the room, Lori leaped into Zheng's arms. Yinkong glanced behind after she walked out and saw Lori going into Zheng's arms. For some reason, she felt a little bitter, but she simply turned back around and lowered her head as she went back to her room. That was when she walked into someone. She raised her head to see Lan looking at her with a weird smile. Their rooms were next to each other, so they were walking in the same direction. Yinkong wasn't aware of anyone in front of her because she was thinking. Lan was attentive and noticed something not right with Yinkong as soon as they came back. Something must have happened for someone as alert as Yinkong to walk into her. Come take a seat in my room. I exchanged some top quality tea from God. Lan smiled. She grabbed Yinkong's hand and walked toward her room. Although she asked for her opinion, her action indicated otherwise. Yinkong was still feeling a little loss inside. She was naturally emotionless even to people she trusted. Yet that bitter, or perhaps sour feeling and the shock from the facility made her lost and a little disappointed. It wasn't after Lan mentioned having tea did she looked over. Lan dragged her inside with a smile, then became busy with herself. 10 minutes later, they sat down by a tea table. This celestial tea was a species that had become extinct in the real world. The water looked golden. The fragrance was rich. It made them feel relaxed. It sounds like Zheng improved rapidly during this time. Lan took a sip of the tea and said. Yinkong lowered her head and drank the tea. After some time, she muttered. I just want to know how he improved so fast. Power isn't a simple matter of enhancing. If he couldn't absorb what he obtained, the higher the enhancement, the more it would hurt him. She recalled how she was killed in Resident Evil. Lan smiled. I don't know much about being strong, but I think you are simply overthinking it. If you want to know, just go ask him. I think he wouldn't hide anything from you. Or is there something that made you overcomplicate this? Lan refilled their cups. Yinkong felt a little irritated. She drank the tea in one gulp and said. I think I got sick. I originally thought it was the T virus, but the full body repair from God didn't cure it. Oh. Lan became curious. She refilled Yinkong's cup and asked. What kind of sickness? Isn't Cheng Xiao an expert on this? Why don't you let him take a look? Yinkong felt her face burned a little. She didn't know why, but she subconsciously didn't want to tell her bitter feeling. She finished the cup of tea again and sat there quietly. Lan carefully observed the little girl until Yinkong's face turned red. She had an idea of it and walked over to her. Lan said something by her ear and indeed, Yinkong nodded. Stupid girl. That's not sickness. Lan laughed. However, she couldn't continue. Zheng had a family after all. Her words made Yinkong realize what the issue was and also created a psychological barrier within her. Lan sighed. She sat there quietly with Yinkong. The next day, Team China was busy preparing for the next movie. They carefully watched Lord of the Rings over 30 times. They also exchanged some important items with the points they obtained from Resident Evil. Since every person could only gift and exchange once per mission, they didn't have the quota to gift again. The people who obtained the reward saved their ranked rewards and used the points to exchange items for the team. Lord of the Rings had an immense world. The world of Alien was nothing in comparison. Even if they were only sent to one episode of the series, the main mission and team battle would probably take over a month. If a large-scale battle happened that made them lose an arm or leg, it would decrease the team's strength and might lead to death. So they spent all their points on utility items to increase their survival rate. They had power enough weapons already. They exchanged 13 charms of the 3 pure ones at the cost of 500 points each. The description said it could heal any non-fatal wounds and could even reattach broken limbs. It could recover 70% of a person's strength in an hour. Then they spent 1000 points and a rank D reward for each freezing pill. The pill was made by Xians in ancient Asia that would put a person into deep sleep. The person's immunization and regeneration would increase by 100 folds. This sleep would last until the person's wounds were no longer fatal. They exchanged 5 of these. They also got bandages, hemostasis sprays, and the Xian needles Cheng Xiao used to have. All the items went into the dimensional bag. Team China could last much longer in battles and was much stronger than before. They weren't worried even if they were to stay in Lord of the Rings for several months. Xian encountered troubles creating the prototype T virus. He failed several times and became infected with the virus. But at last, he completed culturing the virus, 80 portions that could create Nemesis. The few people in the team who hadn't unlocked was also injected with the virus. He said it would take 7 days for the virus to complete altering their bodies before they could unlock. Now, Team China was basically consisted of all unlocked members, probably the only team to achieve this aside from Team Devil and Team Celestial. Xian also handed Zheng 40 portions of the prototype T virus. Zheng had predicted this since Xian wanted to use these on other teams before killing them. Such huge interests made him willingly put the virus into the ring. Then the day finally came. Enter the beam within 30 seconds. Target locked, Lord of the Rings. Beginning teleportation.